over on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and the podcast. So thanks everyone for joining in today's episode 128, and Happy New Year. It's the first one of 2019 as well. So I'm really excited about this one because there's quite a few questions on stuff we don't always talk about. Usually it's tremendously practical. And I think what's interesting is that you lot are mostly conditioned to know that this live stream is practical, and as a result, the questions, whilst focusing on action, are very much on how to do action, which is great because it means you know me well. What we're not doing here is all the whole, rah-rah motivation, you can do it, let's get active kind of thing. So hopefully that is good news for you all. If you are, I'm just trying to sort my life out with Facebook for a second. So if you are listening in, today's session is on action at the start of 2019 for startup businesses, for entrepreneurs and for so on. If you'd like to ask a question, do stick it into the comments wherever you are, either Instagram, hello Rasta Joseph, or over on Facebook, or perhaps somewhere like YouTube. You never know, you could check in there as well. Couple of notices first though. I wanted to start by saying thank you everyone jumping all over the Entrepreneur Business Live world right now, because 2019 of course is about going crazy on international events. So if you are watching, firstly, if you are watching now, I'd love you to put a little hashtag team live in, so I know that you're watching live. So put in the comments hashtag team live, or if you're watching a replay, then hashtag team replay. I want to see who shows up. And if you have any questions, you can of course post them right away here. Saying hi to Lacey, to Daniel, to Diana, to Devon. Nice to see you all here. Great to be live. First one of the new year. So I'm just going to wave back to everyone, and then let's get started with the questions. But before I do, as I say, I'm going to talk about Entrepreneur Business Live in New York City on the 24th of January. We will be in New York City for the first international event. This is going to be a hub event, so I'm really hoping to be able to run this one quarterly. I would love you also to put in the comments where you are based right now, because if you're in New York, there is no reason to not come. So I will hunt you down and try and get you in there. It would be really nice to see any of you who can make it. I am so pleased because this set of events is obviously doing something well. So I'm going to move cameras a second. It's obviously doing so well because so many people are saying like, hi, Richard. I've sent me messages saying things like, hi, Richard, I've got my ticket. I'm going to fly in for the event. So people are coming from across the country, from other countries as well. It's an amazing thing. And, it means that it's obviously, it's getting some kind of a buzz. So thanks so much for that to all of you for helping us help that happen. So let's get into the questions. The first one is from Zach Houston. He's asked, what are the key rocks or key elements that we must plan at the start of the year? Well, it's quite interesting. I'm going to see what the hell's going on YouTube first. No, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, one of the big things about this is that if you are new or if you are seasoned and experienced, it's important to remember this thing of looking at your year as a recalibration. Because perhaps in April in 2018, you sat down and said, right, who am I? Who's my audience? Who's my ideal customer? Things like that. Sure. But has that changed? So if you're new to business, starting new year, in the beginning of the new year in January, this is your kind of your first move into it. One of the most important things is to always look at who is my audience. As far as you can, it will develop and evolve over time. But as far as you can, who is it you're targeting? Give detail to yourself. You should write it down, like what kind of demographic are they? Where are they based? What are they into? What kind of interest would they have? Things like that. It's so essential. Because if you have it in mind, I've always found it's a really great way to say to yourself, can I just picture who I'm speaking to right now, or who I'm selling to right now, or who I'm producing this message to right now? It really helps. I'm not often doing this, though, at the start of each year, even though I've established a business. So what I'm saying is even if you've got a business that's been running for some time, it's worth pillar one or kind of rock one, to use your parlance, Zach, is to recalibrate. So write down again, who is your audience? Because whatever you had, 6 months ago, even a year ago, that may well have evolved. Why? Because you've evolved. So what you're doing, the slight angle, maybe a slight tuning of a niche has happened across a year. if you don't check in on that, you may well miss a few important points there. So without question, because things are so fluid, whoever you were targeting maybe a year ago, those people are going to be slightly different now, because you're slightly different, more evolved. It might be that they're a slightly higher level. It might be that you're pivoting altogether and they're a completely different industry. But whatever they are, you need to just tune into that. So that's the first one. The second one, I think, can only be done with the first, though, Zach, which is who, or not who, you've done who, but what really is your signal? Because we talked about this a lot last year, the idea of pure signal. What is it that you're going to put out to them as a message? What is it you're trying to say? And it's not, I want to sell my product to them. How are you trying to impact and improve their world? Okay, it might sound touchy-feely, but if you can get that bit right, then you can say, right, how do I, what's the solution I'm going to provide them? What is it I'm going to do to improve or impact their lives, this audience I've decided on? Because when I know that, that can be a little filter that's applied to every piece of communication outbound to that audience. But the other thing, of course, as well, because running a business here, is it's not just about communication to them, it's about having them come back and convert. So the third rock I'd really say you should evaluate, Zach, is what is their path? So who are they? Okay, that's the first job. What's your message? What is it you're trying to help them with? Where's the problem or whatever? So that you speak along the, the right kind of signal to them. And then thirdly, what is their path? What I mean by this is, from free content like this, for example, how does that map back to people buying your product or engaging your services or being impacted in a way that you want them to? That's see back to the second rock. So it's essential to get this bit right, because what can happen is people love what you do. There's thousands of them engaging, and then they hit a brick wall because it's difficult to navigate where to go from there. Okay? Is it intuitive? These are little questions you should ask. Is it intuitive now, having seen content, for instance, for them to decide to go onto a profile? Sure, that's what humans tend to do. We're conditioned to do that through Facebook, through Instagram, through through LinkedIn. We always check out a profile if someone's created some message or communication that's of any level of curiosity. But what's interesting, let me just switch to a better connection on Facebook. Do apologize. What is interesting is that these people will also need to be guided once they get to a profile. I'm back over on Facebook. Hello. So these people need to be shown the way. So when they land on your profile, is it clear what you actually offer? Someone I know very well who's wonderful at this communication, called Lila Smith, usually checks in on Instagram, is a perfect example of someone who once told me, how did she put it? She said something like, write in your profile the thing it is you want people to pay you for. And it's absolutely right. The problem is that a lot of people will love what you do. They'll get to your world, so your website, whatever, and then it's the fluff. Okay, it's the cute marketing words. Okay, like, I can't even think. So something like, I'm an authentic business entrepreneur. That means nothing. It's hoped that all people would be authentic, but business entrepreneurs. That if someone's going to engage with that type of person, you're not telling them anything particularly valuable. So be a bit more specific. Make it clear what it is you do, and then make it clear how they can get to you. Don't tell them how to buy your product. Just show them a way. Because if someone has any level of interest in you, they will then want to click through to your profile and your website, sure. But what they will also want to do when they get there, if they're curious enough, is navigate around. So is it intuitive? Is the user experience or UX of interest to them? And if you get that bit right, then it's wonderful. It's a fluid thing. A perfect example was yesterday. I remember I woke up. I love it. This happens most days. I woke up and there was an email that had come to my inbox from my software plugged into my website saying a new member has registered. And even though these are tiny amounts of money, it's only $97 when someone buys my LinkedIn course, for example, which is what it was this time. That feeling, that back of the neck feeling is fantastic, because what that means is that someone found my stuff through it being shared or whatever it might be. And it was the LinkedIn post I put out the other day. It's done about 150,000 views. It's crazy. It went out on Friday, I think. And someone's viewed that and then decided, Zach, we're almost finished a question. I just saw you come online on Facebook. Just decided at that point, I'm going to check out his profile. Then that was sufficiently interesting because they saw how the post correlated to what they're interested in. They happened to then see that I have a course. They clicked on that link, went to the website, explained the wins for them, and then they decided to buy. For everyone like that, there might be 100 that don't do anything. And there might be 1,000 that never even get that far to not do anything. But that was a wonderful moment, because what it is, the three rocks, just to summarize, because Zach's just joined and he's the one who asked the question, is who is the audience? So I'd identified the right person. The second thing is I looked at what my signal is. I was given a really pure signal on here's what I do and here's how I can help you. Here's the problem. And that the post was how to use LinkedIn in 2019 and have a meaningful response, which is literally what happened. And then the third thing is to make sure that the path is clear. So what is their path? Making sure it's really clear for them, for those who want to buy, just to go through. You want to get the hell out of their way. There was no difficult things in the way. It was as simple as day for that person to buy the product. It doesn't stop there, because that third point on what's your path should be integrated into your product as well. In fact, all of these rocks should, because what happens there is that if you deliver it in the right way, your product then naturally makes that person want to go buy more. So can they go back to your website? What's the next iteration? What's the next level up? Where's the next step on the value ladder for them? Is that clear as well? So I think by working in this way, if you get it right, you can tell you get it right, because people who start viewing your stuff then move to engaging your stuff, and then they move to buying your stuff, and then they buy every single thing of yours half the time. And that's a really nice way of testing that it's working. So hopefully that helps. It's a really great question. They're the three things I would do. But the important point there is it's not just for a startup. If you're an established business, you need to recalibrate each year and check in on these things as well. So thanks, Zach, because it was an awesome question. Hi there to Derek. Nice to see you there. The School of Frock Stars. What an amazing name on Instagram. Nice to see you. BGIE. Ben, good to see you. Arthur, hello. Snihil5 and quite a few of the others of you on Instagram as well. Nice to see you there. We're talking about action because it's the first session of 2019. So thank you very much for joining it, everyone. And move on to another question from Anna Soricio. How do you set SMART goals, both short-term goals that feed into the bigger picture? I don't know about the language, both short-term, maybe and long-term, she meant. Just so if you don't know this, so SMART goals are a kind of quite a businessy term. It's been around a long time, and it's about productivity. It's about setting goals. And if you haven't checked this kind of thing out, I mean, there's always these acronyms and mnemonics and things like that in business, and they're there to make us help us along and things like that. You can overdo a lot of it, but this one's quite a decent one. And the problem with a lot of meetings, for example, is a lot of people have. It's one thing that I work with a lot, is that a lot of people have meetings because they like to get away from doing some work. And it's a nice opportunity to have a kind of a cute sit around a cup of hot cocoa and have a nice chat and feel comfortable, but nothing necessarily comes out of them. SMART goals, and as brought up here, they should be specific. So if you're setting a goal or a target for yourself, they should be very specific on exactly what it is, rather than gain market share. It should be increase market share by 2% in this region or something like that. So whatever it might be, measurable as well. So can you actually measure essentially if the task is being completed or not, or progress along the way? Is it achievable? If one of my tasks was have an event in every single country this year, I'd probably be stretching it a bit too much. So I need something that's a bit more achievable. It's not lowering your aspirations, it's just being intelligent about the time frame you've got to do it in. Then R for SMART is relevant. So it's going to be relevant to what you do. Otherwise, your goals are suddenly off piste. It's good to stay tight with what it is you need to achieve. So you should have some kind of corporate mission or something, or some kind of direction your business is trying to go into, and that's the thing. that will help you decide if your goals are relevant or not. And the last thing, T, is probably the most important one, I believe, is time specific as well. So you always set a time against it as well. Hello, smart person as well. Rebecca Godfrey's just joined us on Facebook. We're talking about smart goals here, Rebecca. Probably something you've done quite a bit as well. So I think just understanding those 5, what you end up with is very, very highly tuned goals that are going to get completed. Drop any of those balls and you end up with them being open-ended, or you end up with them being in a place where, no one knows if it's their job or not. And, you should be able to say, it's you that has this goal, or you that has this task. Here's your deadline. And, other notes. I remember the first time I came across this would have been about 12 years ago. And we had a sheet of paper every time we went into a meeting. Our meetings, we were trying to get them under 10 minutes for the whole of the events business we worked in. And it was a case of saying, right, what's the date now? Okay, what's the goal here? Who is the people that are going to be involved in that goal here? Who is taking the lead of the goal? That it fill in this column, and when will it be completed by? Put it in there. And then the next day we have a quick catch up. Right, where are you against this? Which ones should have been done? If they're done, good. If there's any notes, add them. And if it's a case of like, well, something happened or the ball was dropped, what's going to be done about it? It's really simple, but it means that you move away from the fluffy, comfortable, let's sit around and chat about the weekend meetings, and you get into some action that actually moves you forward. So that's how you can set smart goals. But I think it's important as well to look at types of goals here as well, Anna. So each week, for example, very important to look at large goals as well as smaller ones. Yes, chip away at the thing you're working on. And, if you look at the goals I've got on the ground for the Entrepreneur Business Live events as we build into this year, it's tiny things like there's a guy in London today I have to call about a venue for a few weeks' time. There's little tiny things like that. There's another guy I'm speaking to in the States who's helping with some software thing, tiny little goals to get certain milestones done. But there needs to be big stuff as well. I genuinely believe that. You need to have something large once a week to throw into, because you can be focused a little bit too much on the grindstone and not something that's going to pull you forward. So I think because otherwise your progress can be very slight. So one thing I've found has worked really well for me is to each week also have a big goal, something large that's going to, even if other parts of the business don't move in that direction, something that will have a bit of a step change for me, something quite big. And a really good way of doing this is to think about how you're going to make this thing happen. And I think that it can be that you simply create a small goal or a small action or task against a big objective. So it might be, I want to run by May, I want to run an event in Australia. That's a big goal, but my goal this week, I might choose a smart based objective to touch base with one person who can help, or to spend 15 minutes today researching venues in Melbourne, for instance. Because if I did that, I'm at least taking small steps against the big thing. So I think it's important to look at it like that as well. So they are big. They're not the biggest things. The biggest thing is maybe my overall mission statement, but I will have some big goals in place like that as well. It's good to look at that each week. Am I trying to take big steps to help with the next thing as well? This sounds crazy. This is a bit Grant Cardone as well, I suppose, but you need to look to try and create problems each week. If you're creating new problems for yourself, new bigger problems, it's a really good indicator of progress, I've found. Because what a lot of us do, and this is where growth is stifled, and this we have to be honest with yourself, a lot of us do this. We work, when we have a business that is establishing itself or established, we work to try and basically iron out all of the creases and get rid of all the problems, to build a world where there are no more problems in our business. I believe that's a mistake. Problems are a byproduct of new progress. Okay, So if you're doing new things, you're adding, you're growing, you're scaling, you're bringing new things into the business, you're innovating in some way or creating, there should be, if you're doing it right, there should be new things thrown up and new problems should be occurring. It sounds counterintuitive, because why would you want to build a business where you don't have problems? Because if you're building anything new and you're going for it enough, there should be things being thrown up. Wanting an easy life, in a way, is the same as wanting very little to happen to your business. So stagnancy is dangerous. A lot of people, I know this a lot, but there's an example. I know someone here in the UK actually who has a business and has said, I'm really happy with how it is. I don't want to grow the business. I want to keep it at the level it is. So what that person does is he makes, like, I think it's about $500,000 a year or so, but he says, I focus on keeping this business the way it is by doing things the way we've always done them. That's great, but in 15 years, he's in a lot of trouble because it's very, very face-to-face. There's no use of the online world, and things will change for him. Manufacturing has not changed anything for probably 20 years or so, and new people will come in. So as long as you're not moving in to try new things, you're moving to a place where potentially there's problems. So that's something to think about. You want to look at adding new goals, Anna, that may well create problems, but that's a suggestion. There might be maybe progress as well. All the while, though, back to that R letter in SMART, make sure it's relevant, make sure it's against your pure signal. It's very important that, because you need to be making sure that your goals and objectives and things you're trying to do are aligned with, the whole point of, or whole message of what you're doing. It's so easy to get distracted and go off piece and do something slightly different, but that's not really going to be feeding into the business you're running. So think on that. It's very important to make sure you stay tight with your pure signal. So the thing that is the kind of the core focus of your business. So hopefully that helps. Thumbs up if that makes sense. Fred, nice to see you joining in from Connecticut. Daniel, problems are a byproduct of new progress. Absolutely. Marion, amazing to see you here. Thank you so much. A book on change, Who Moved My Cheese? I have it literally in my bookshelf just over there. So it's a great book. Well done. Justin Myers, nice to see you here. Sushi over in Singapore. Good to see you here as well. Thank you so much for your kind words earlier on Facebook. So we're talking about action. It's the start of the new year. This is Startup Business Q&A. This is week number 128. Thank you for joining if this is your first time. And we're talking about things you should be doing to build action in 2019 as you start. So let's go on to the next question. Mona Nairis asked, and shout out to Mona, who is working so well, helping me produce my weekly newsletter. If you are not receiving the newsletter, go to therichardmoore.com after this /newsletter, and you can add yourself. We only send that out to you once a week, but it's amazing digest of content I produced in the last week, including this Q&A replay. It's top things from top people around the world, so things that they've come up with, their content as well, and then news you can use, so things that are development, like the cutting edge, bleeding edge changes in, for instance, social media platforms that you need to be made aware of. So things like that, they're all there once a week, comes out at 4 o'clock UK time, I believe it is. So check that out a bit later. And thanks to Mona, who asked this question. Richard, what are the essential steps to build momentum that's sustainable? This is simple, but also difficult. The essential step to build momentum is the product of consistency. Okay, if you're consistent, then momentum starts happening. The reason why some people, it seems, effortlessly can stand up in the morning, get out of bed and just work, and they're doing it every day, and others are procrastinating, is both people, okay, the one who's full of action and getting things done, productivity, and the one who doesn't do anything, procrastinates and is lazy, both people actually have habit. They have momentum as well, and they are consistent. But the problem is that their habits are different. One's habit is focusing on things like getting on and doing. The other one is habit of not doing anything. It's just the same in principle, I believe. And they're consistently doing that over and over again. And it's like trying to change direction. It's very difficult to move out of routine once you're in it, when it's a real habit. And the science shows, I can't remember who it was. I think it was University of East London actually did this study on this in 2009. It was shown, it was a huge amount of people that did some kind of habit thing. And it varied from, 20 days to 180 days to build a habit, but the average was 66 days. And so on average, not for everyone, you might be half a year to get there. Some people are like within 5 minutes, but to get a habit going, on average, the science suggests takes you 66 days. So how do you build habit? Here's how I build habits so that I can build consistency, so I can end up in a place where I have momentum. I screw willpower, because willpower as your device to build habits is very, very dangerous, because in the start, when you're launching these habits, all it takes is for you to not remember, or to drop the ball, or to not think about it, and it's gone. So how do you hack around willpower? So for a good example is, if I eat biscuits, cookies if you're in America, if I eat biscuits too much, biscuits are called scones here, it's a whole problem, don't worry. But if I eat cookies, let's say, too much, and I want to stop eating cookies, I can exercise willpower. So I have cookies in the house and I decide not to eat them. Or I use this other approach, which is screwing willpower. Take them out of the equation. I would not have them in the house. Now I don't have to worry about willpower, because it is certain every day that I will not eat cookies, because there is no ability to eat them because they don't exist in my household. So how do you add this to the business space? Really simple. Yes, Marion, rich tea. I'm a big fan, one of my favorites. Obviously with chocolate on top. Anyway, let's not digress. So how do you build a habit? You schedule the habit. It's as simple as that. When I started, it's crazy, it was only about 5 years ago, avidly reading at least once a day for, say, 10 minutes. The way I created that habit was every day I had a recurring reminder in my Outlook on my phone and my desktop with myself. So a little meeting for 10 minutes that would set up a little reminder to pop up saying read. So every day for 10 minutes, that would pop up. I have to then read. Simple as that. Lila, hello, nice to see you. I shouted you out a minute ago on Instagram, so you have to watch the replay. Sorry, but that's the way I did it. And so rather than use willpower, I used a scheduler instead, and that's what worked. Christine, nice to see you. Hello, Devon. Thanks for that comment on Facebook. And it's the same as every Monday at 1 p.m. GMT. I run this show. It doesn't require anything other than the fact that I've got it scheduled, it happened. It's where I developed the idea of the time island. It's called a time island. It's an island of time set in a fluid sea of time and things that could be happening. There's that island, it's a rock, it doesn't move. So it means that every week on a Monday at 1 p.m. we're doing this. My wife and I schedule holiday around the Q&A. I have my lunch around the Q&A. People know the Q&A is on then. I don't even have clients at 1 o'clock on a Monday because I'm doing the Q&A, because it's been that way for, in 2 weeks time, it will be, 2.5 years. So it's very, very important to have something like that in place, because it will help you nail that down so that every single time you need to do this thing to become a habit, it will be there for you. It just works. And that developed into the when to do list, the thing that was featured in Forbes earlier last year. The idea of the when to do list, I've got it on the wall right here. It's a big whiteboard, and every single item is written down with a time set against it. I don't need willpower, or I don't need to think. This is the key part. If I'm not in the mood, it still gets done because I adhere to that schedule. You could argue, well, it doesn't require willpower. Not so much, because there's this thing coming up, and that accountability to myself tends to work very well. Okay, it's very, very useful. So that's the way I build it. That scheduling of whatever you need to do is how you build habit. And when I coach leaders at corporates, this is one of the things that comes up a lot. They say, if we're going to develop my team members, I would love to do like a weekly meeting for development. Maybe every Tuesday we can have a weekly meeting. I was like, perfect. So schedule a reminder to do it, because it will be there, because you think this is a great idea right now, but in 3 weeks you might forget, and then it gets pushed back. Or we're too busy right now. I'll push it till later on in the day. Oh, I'll just do it when I run out, when I've got time. No, it won't happen. So this morning, after breakfast, I did yoga for half an hour. and had a coffee, and that was scheduled. I would never have done yoga. I would have just got on with some work otherwise. But because it was scheduled, it's part of my habit. It's like that happens every single time. Because I look at my board, oh, it's time for yoga now. I know straight after this live show, I have a call at a specific time with a guy in London. And the moment that's finished, I have to do an Instagram post. The moment that's finished, I have to do a repost of some work I did with a client. So I've got it all nailed down. I don't have to add willpower because it's going to happen because it's on that when to do list. So that's the way I did it. Jocelyn, your realtor, nice to see you on Instagram. Thanks a lot. Lila's added, also, I need to do more scheduled, so reliable content. The consistency builds trustworthy audience. Absolutely, because when that consistency is out there, especially with your content, people are going to get used to you or familiar with you showing up. That's crucial because people getting used to or familiar with you means there's greater trust in what it is you have to say and what you're offering as well. So get some of the comments on Facebook after the Rich T one from Marion. Devon has added, habits are a specialty of mine. You're right, it's not willpower. Make good habits inevitable, precisely. If you want to go to bed at 10:30 every night, you need a reminder to say, go to bed at this time. Get it on your watch or something like that. Just something that's going to remind you or promote you. Otherwise, you'll just keep going. And it's kind of cool after a while when you've got that schedule. It's a really wonderful thing. There's a time and a place for flux and ebb and flow, and being on a holiday or being in a world where anything can just happen and you're full of whimsy and spontaneity. That's called a break or a holiday. And Christmas was full of that. I loved it because if you get up when I wanted to get up, we could just relax for the day and did what took our fancy. But being productive through habit means scheduling things because you're an animal and instincts affect you. But it's wonderful when you have some sense of, decided upon by your rational self, some sense of guidance. It really helps. And this is all about self-discipline, really. Marin's added, I love the concept of having a meeting with myself. Great tactic. Yes, the Time Island. If you go to YouTube on my channel and look at Time Island, you'll find it there. The video I did is quite a while back. So it's like 3 years ago I did that. And Daniel's adding, that's what Ian Tiskell was advising me to do. It's hard to schedule bad habits, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Yeah, you do. Otherwise, you'll keep doing them sometimes. Mona, thanks so much for joining. Just answered your question. So true, said Baron. When I went up to 6 a.m. this morning, not good at all, counterproductive. Yeah, because, I've done it as well. And then you're kind of you're in your head, you've got the hero tunes playing. You're like, I'm doing this. Look at this hustle or this grind. But then you suffer the next day. It's really important to make sure you think about when you're finishing the day. So all of this, it's a constant game. That's the thing. So someone asked me the other day about the when to do list and productivity and habits and staying on point and getting all this stuff done. And I said it is gamifying my day. That's what I'm doing. And I gamify it. It's funny because people say you should never watch the clock. And you see some people who put like a Post-it note to cover the clock on their screens on this. And, I'm the other way around. I'm like, I watch the clock because it's part of the game. I'm on these time challenges all the time. I've got 7 minutes to finish this task because then I got on to the next thing. It's how you're as productive as 3 people in a day because you just get so much more done because you're really not allowing for any slippage at all in time. It really helps. So there's enough treatment of that, hopefully, Mona, for you in there. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening in. We're talking about action today. If you have a question about building habit or taking action on your startup business this year, then do add it into the comments and I'll happily answer it. But let's go on to Bernadette Judd here. I'd love to hear your take on all things habits, creating them, keeping them, etc. Business or life, both are useful tips around action, even if your goal feels wildly big and scary. I think we're kind of giving that a good treatment with Mona's question, but, small steps. Sure. Look at small steps and small habits, reading every day. If you've got other things to do, it's very romantic to say I read every day, but you shouldn't be reading ad nauseum all day because then you're not going to get anything done. And it's fashionable to say you read a lot. We get it. All the top CEOs read an average of a book a week, sure. But if you read too much, now you're not taking any action. So reading for me is 10 minutes a day. And reading for me, again, is gamified. It's, right, you've got 10 minutes, Richard. And I'll say, I've turned it off, but I'll say, Alexa, set an alarm for 10 minutes. And I'll open the book and go, right, looking at the content, being intelligent about it, where can I find a chapter where there might be a nugget I can learn from? I want to get the central thesis. I've got 10 minutes to read, to scan or read, and try and find a piece of information in there. If I'm reading a biography, different. I'll be reading it. Okay, fine. If it was a story, I'm reading Making History by Stephen Fry at the moment. That's an evening read before I go to bed. It's a little bit of story I'm reading for 10 minutes. But in the main, if I'm reading a book, which is normally a business book or a practical guide, it will be like, where can I find that central piece of information? When I found it, I'll read around it. If maybe I find it 3 minutes in, the remaining 7 minutes will be just padding out with extra reading to get it, the anecdotes and so on. Then I put it down. And that's how I do it. I did it with Give and Take the other day. I posted this on Instagram, a book by Professor Adam Grant from Wharton. And it's talking about the thesis being that those that give at the very, very top actually get a lot more than those who take first. It's just the jab, 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 right hook, but with a bit more science, essentially. And essentially, there's one anecdote. I got what it said. I understood the point, and then 10 minutes was up. I'm like, good, that's a job well done there. And so it was interesting. It was building a habit, but by doing very small amounts of times, and building a habit of getting things from books and reading at the same time. But I think also looking at big steps, Bernadette, think about accountability. I think it was August. So let me take a step back, actually. In July last year, we had our first Entrepreneur Business Live event. In August, I publicly stated on Facebook, I'm excited because in January next year, so right now, this month, we're going to be rolling out Entrepreneur Business Live New York City. Okay, so I stated it in public. You need to understand what your accountability looks like. For some people, they are accountable to things like money. So for some people, if they bought a course, if they spent all their money on something, they would feel they should do it. I've found over the years it just doesn't work for me. I could spend thousands of pounds on a course or something, and it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. In the same way as I might spend money on a book, doesn't mean I'm going to read it. Just because even if I've spent £20 on a brand new book, I'm not going to read it. I will read it if I want to. But accountability for me works when it's people. If I can potentially let someone down, then I really, really will work hard to not do that. So I will make myself work very hard and be accountable to that person or that set of people. So I've found my hack is, and this is something to think about, Bernadette, is if you want to achieve something. So I think for you, you started a business page. I checked out your Facebook earlier today, for instance. You're starting a business page or something, or you might be blogging or some more content-based year ahead for you. So make a statement about what it is you're going to do and set some larger goals. So I've been talking for months, really since August, about Entrepreneur Business Live USA. And then if you've been following my content last few months, I've been talking more about other countries. So Barcelona now is going to be in April. I've got my eye on potentially on Geneva and potentially on Melbourne. But by saying things out now like this in public, nothing matters. No one's going to lose any sleep if I don't do it. But it's making me, because I'm aware of how my accountability works, it's making me say to myself, I've said that thing and I'm going to keep posting about it. And it's like, so New York's happening then, right? It better happen because I'm saying it is. And what I then did was other things like to make or force things to happen. A bit like Devon Scott commented on Facebook a minute ago about making habit inevitable. A lot of things I do, I not only did I state that I was going to be in New York, hi there, Abjit, I also bought a ticket. I bought a flight. Then I paid a lot of money to WeWork on Lexington Avenue to host the space on that day. So now I've said it's going to happen. I've booked the venue and date, and I've booked the flight. This is now going to be a very, very expensive trip to New York, or it turns into an event with profit and it's all worthwhile. So this forces it to happen. And so part of you will be screaming, oh, don't do it, stay safe. But if you do something big like that, it's a great way of forcing the habit through. So for instance, to make it a little bit maybe more applicable to many, if you decide you want to write a blog, then go tell everyone you want to write a blog, state you're going to do it. Send out adverts on Facebook so that people can come and visit your page to see your daily blog. this is how we built our newsletter, my newsletter that goes out weekly on my website, that is getting loads and loads of hits because people find it through places like LinkedIn and so on. And I've put it on LinkedIn as well, and that gets thousands of views, that profile, every single month. I wrote things like, sign up for my weekly newsletter. It comes out every Monday. So now I have to produce a newsletter every Monday. And again, the world will keep turning if I don't, but that level of accountability is enough for me and Mona, wonderful producer of the newsletter, on a Sunday to be messaging each other saying, are you cool with these links? What do we think? We've researched this, that looks good. Here's the intro for it, and so on, and build it every single week. And it's, it's been like 16 weeks or something now. It's fantastic. So that's how it happens. Someone's written here, increased freedom is a really good point. You've added pushing the dream to fruition. It's so important to push beyond the dream part, because otherwise it's just chat. Okay, it's far better to take an action or something and do something that puts you out there. So it has to happen now. And like I say, if you're a lifestyle entrepreneur, if you're the kind of person, I know people who, for instance, are to travel, would produce great content on their Instagram, and that's where they kind of in a roundabout way derive their income from. So book a holiday, so book a trip now, after this live stream, go online in February, where am I going? Go fly somewhere, okay, and book it. Now I'm going somewhere, now I need to make this thing worthwhile. So taking action against the dream is a really good thing, but thinking about where your accountability lies, Bernadette, that's a really good way of making it happen. If your habits and goals and things you're trying to achieve are sitting there in the background and they're quiet and they're secret and no one knows about them, it's so very easy to not bother doing them. Because who knows if you did them or not? No one even knew about them in the first place. So if something's important enough, tell the world you're going to do it, broadcast it, build the structure, then you have to go do it. You're forced to fill in the gaps there. Create accountability. What I love doing as well is working with other people. Anna, who asked the question earlier, who's also here in London, is the kind of the events coordinator and operations person, and she works with me on Entrepreneur Business Live here in the UK. She is instrumental in so many ways for logistics and operations, but also for accountability. Because imagine if I didn't do anything. Imagine if I didn't bother. Now I've got someone who's like, what are you up to, man? You need to catch up. That accountability. The last thing I want is for someone to think, like, this guy's full of hot air, so I need to, of course, make sure I deliver. And so it's a very useful way of pushing me to make sure the next event happens each time. Of course, I'm keen to do it as well. It's not just because it's not a chore for me. But I hope that helps, Bernadette. I could go on all night, but there's some really useful things. Accountability is a big point there. Hello to Michael Getty. Good to see you here. Thank you. Good morning. Juice Peshik as well. Happy New Year. Good to see you too. This is the first Startup Business Q&A of the year. So thanks so much, everyone, for watching here. And let's look at one final question from Daniel Nunes. So he said, Richard, a WeWork is still under construction locally here in Phoenix. How do you collaborate with other event coordinators and logistics specialists to create an optimal networking experience? I think you're asking, how do you create a space of your own? Is this what you're saying? Or instead of if the WeWork's still under construction, or how do you network if there isn't a WeWork in place? You can create the environment yourself, there are hangouts online, or you can hire a venue and put together a marketing event. And one thing I thought, and it sounds really arrogant, and perhaps to a degree it is, but I was going to events in London, right? It wasn't that long ago. Going to events in London, and I still do. I was going to events in London, and I remember sitting there going, I think it was when I'd been to like 3 in a row, and thought, this is just rubbish. It's just like dross. I remember sitting there, and there was 4 speakers, and they were rubbish. It wasn't just the delivery was terrible. Like, these people hadn't a clue, and they were doing, one of them was doing the whole hands up if you want to be a millionaire kind of speech, and it was all misty-eyed nonsense about how they'd had such a hard life, and everyone's rolling their eyes. And I remember thinking, this is bad. This is a bad event. And what I thought was, well, don't complain, go do one yourself then. And I thought the best way to have a great event, an event that I know I would love, is to have the components I want in it. One of the 3 components I like in an event is great speakers who have something I can learn from. because a lot of the time you get nonsense and it's just like, I'm not learning a thing here. And a lot of it's out of date, which is hilarious when you get people talking about social media and content and engagement, and they don't know that LinkedIn is something that should be part of their toolkit. And it's like, and it's all Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And it's like, you're not very current, you know? So great content is essential, but networking I like too. And I really want it to be decent networking with good people that are going to be relevant to my space so I can get something out of it. Because I always try and get, and I usually do, get something of value or meaningful out of each event I attend. But then the third thing is a little bit self-indulgent, is I like speaking at them as well. They're great events when I get to speak, because it positions me as someone who's got something to say. And so it helps. It sounds weird, but the reason why I do a lot of speaking is because it helps with my networking. The networking is so much more productive when you've done some talking, because it familiarizes the audience with you, so they feel like they know you a bit more, so you become more approachable, and it puts you in a position, which is ironic, right? You think you kind of a celebrity status. It's nonsense. People like, they want to talk to you because you have something now to talk about, and it's great because some people will come to you, and it means that your networking is so much more easier, because you don't have to look around at who you're going to speak to or sidle up to people. Someone will just walk up to you and go, hey, I liked how you said this thing. Can we talk about it? And you'll go. Like, networking is really intense then. So those three pillars, I was like, well, that what that looks like is me running my own events. And there's one of the best sayings I've ever heard in my life is, if you can't change it, change your attitude. And if you can't change your attitude, then, you know, well, there's the other way around. I screwed it up. Sorry. If you can't change it, if you don't like it, change it. Gosh, I completely messed up. If you don't like it, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. So I didn't like it, so I changed, and I couldn't change it because that was an event that was run by someone else. So I changed my attitude to, rather than I'll sit here and do this, I'm going to go do something about it. So I'm going to go build my own event instead. So that's kind of why I did it. So what I'm saying here, Daniel, is create the environment yourself. That's a good way to do things. But also keep it simple. I mean, if you're going to do something like this, it's really easy. Get an event and a date, like an event in Eventbrite or something, and a date. Get a venue booked. That's all there is to it. You don't have to do anything else. Then good marketing, create a buzz, and people attend. Or if there are people you want to have attending, just make it worth their while. You know, say, hi, I'm organising a get together for people in our building, or for people locally who are into this kind of thing. I see you in the same space. Why don't we hook up? And also, beyond the direct messaging and the connections on Facebook or LinkedIn and things like that, you can simply ask people, you know, hey, are you free for 15 minutes on a quick Zoom call, or let's meet up for lunch or dinner or something like that. Whenever I'm in London the next 2 days, for example, I will always make sure I go for a coffee with someone, or have lunch, or meet them after work, just something extra, because it's a good way of kind of taking it to the next level. And that's kind of how you can do this. So hopefully that helps a bit, Daniel. That's the way I would do it. But anything beyond that in building some way to collaborate or network people really is embellishment. It's not even needed. The charity donations I have, not needed. Sponsorship, not really needed. Speakers, not even needed, to be honest. You can just have some networking events, book a room, tell people, and that's it. So that can help. But yeah, sorry, I eventually got that right. So if you don't like it, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. And thank you so much to everyone for joining in there. It was amazing fun. I always look forward to this time of the week, and it's one of the best ways of kickstarting things. So Happy New Year officially, even though it's we're a week in. Make sure you're signed up to the newsletter, therichardmoore.com/newsletter, and you'll receive it in a few hours' time for this week. And if anyone is in New York City, please let me know. I would love to see you there on the 24th for Entrepreneur Business Live. In the meantime, have an amazing week. I hope this was of value. And thanks to Zach, Anna, Mona, Bernadette, and Daniel, and anyone else who commented or asked a question on these platforms. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you all later. Take care. Bye-bye on Instagram. See you later on Facebook. Thanks very much. And also see you later on YouTube and the podcast. Take care.